Okay, let's take a look at the general anatomy of the blood vessels. This is artery, this is vein. The arteries have very thick walls compared to the veins. If we compare same size artery and veins, they usually have a thinner wall but a larger lumen. Lumen is the space where the blood is. So this would be the lumen, and this would be the lumen. There are three main types of blood vessels: arteries, veins, and these tiny ones in here, which are the capillaries. So let's take a look at that. So you have large arteries, medium arteries, small arteries, large veins, medium veins, small veins. The smallest veins are usually called venules. The smallest blood vessels are called arterioles. They more or less maintain the same characteristics, but as you can see, the arteries are the ones that are going to transport the blood with a lot of oxygen, and this is where the arteries end, and here's where the veins start to return the blood to the heart. So then what are this set of blood vessels that you have in here that basically they don't have characteristics of arteries or veins? So those are going to be the capillaries. So if I'm going to make this smaller, right here you have capillaries. They are so tiny that they don't have characteristics of this or this. They are just one layer of cells, one next to the other, that the only thing is they have enough space in order to carry one red blood cell in there. So they are basically the connection between the arteries and the veins. The veins, one characteristic that they have is that they show valves. Arteries don't show valves. Another thing is the big arteries and big veins, they are so big and so thick that the amount of blood that is right here in the lumen is not enough in order to provide them blood with oxygen because they are very thick. So blood vessels are necessary within the blood vessels. So because of that, we have these blood vessels called vasa vasorum. As you can see here as well, vasa vasorum. In addition to that, we have three layers in the blood vessels: tunica interna, tunica media, tunica externa. Okay, and you're going to see that in the arteries as well as in the veins. You don't see that in the capillaries because, again, the capillaries are so tiny that they are just one set of cells, one next to the other. So let's scroll down, and as you can see here, we said we have tunica interna, tunica media, and tunica externa. You have vasa vasorum in the big blood vessels. Tunica media, again, most of the time is the thickest one, and for example, in the arteries, it's going to have a whole bunch of muscle. So let's take a look at the arteries. It says conducting large or elastic arteries, medium distributing muscular arteries, or small. So again, you can just say that you have large arteries, medium arteries, and small arteries. Let's keep going. Meta-arterioles. Sometimes the arterioles are going to branch out a little bit more, giving you meta-arterioles, and the meta-arterioles are the ones that are going to be in contact with the capillaries. But again, that's just a detail. The blood vessels are going to have sense organs. They are going to be chemoreceptors, as you can see here, and the other ones are going to be baroreceptors. As you can see, they are located in the internal carotid, for example, and then you have right here other chemoreceptors. We said we have chemoreceptors and baroreceptors, and they are very important in order to provide information to the brain in order to adjust the blood flow to different organs according to the conditions that you're going to have in the blood. Obviously, increasing pressure, decreasing pressure, or increase in chemicals such as oxygen, carbon dioxide. Carotid sinuses, we said those are going to be baroreceptors. Then we have carotid bodies and aortic bodies. When you have bodies, usually those are going to be chemoreceptors. Okay, as you can see here, chemoreceptors. Chemoreceptors work by responding to changes in levels in carbon dioxide as well as in pH. Then the carotid sinuses, again, they are going to capture pressure. Therefore, when the blood pressure increases or decreases, the blood flow is going to be adjusted in order to maintain homeostasis. Now we're going to talk about the capillaries. Capillaries, again, is the connection between the arteries and the veins, basically. So let's scroll down. In here, as I was telling you, capillaries are just cells, one next to the other. So you have one cell right here, you have another cell right here, and you have another cell right here. There's no layers, there's no nothing. So there's nothing thinner than this. This is it. And again, they are so thin and they're so small that only one red blood cell can actually go through it. And that's enough in order for them to release the content that they have. And these contents, for example, oxygen, can actually go through these cells and reach cells that you have right here in your tissues. So what type of capillaries do we have? We have continuous capillaries, fenestrated capillaries, and sinusoidal capillaries. If you look at continuous capillaries, usually continuous means without spaces. And these are the type of capillaries that you're going to find in most of your organs. You have it right here in the skeletal muscle, for example. You also have these capillaries in the brain, for example, forming the blood-brain barrier. The other one is fenestrated capillaries. Capillaries that have holes in it. They have holes because this is where filtration is going to happen. You see, that's going to give you filtration pores. Filtration happens mainly, for example, in the kidney, right? We filter our blood in order to create urine. You have fenestrated capillaries in your kidneys and endocrine glands, small intestine, because in there we absorb a lot of food, for example, right? Nutrients. Then you have this other type of capillaries, which are sinusoidal, discontinuous capillaries. What does discontinuous mean? That it has a whole bunch of breaks or spaces in between the cells of these capillaries. And that's necessary because, for example, you have sinusoidal capillaries in your liver. You have sinusoidal capillaries in your bone, more specifically in the bone marrow. So if you really think about it, what's the job of the bone marrow? To produce red blood cells. How do red blood cells get into the blood? Well, they have to go through the spaces that you're going to have in the discontinuous capillaries. Discontinuous capillaries have enough spaces in between the cells that will allow the red blood cell and the platelets and the proteins, for example, to actually go through and reach the blood.